I never planned to ruin a wedding. Honestly, I didn't even plan to kiss him. But there I was, on a Tuesday night, rain slicking the streets of our small hometown in Oregon, and I leaned in without thinking. The world narrowed to the curve of his lips, the shock in his eyes, and that pulse of something I couldn't name until it slapped me in the chest. I should have pulled back. I should have told him to forget it. But when Mark looked at me, that mix of disbelief and something dangerous, something tender, I froze. He's my best friend. We've been inseparable since high school, sharing secrets, heartbreaks, and ridiculous late-night drives through empty streets. And yet, in that moment, the whole history between us became combustible. We stood there under the dim glow of a street lamp, the rain dripping off the brim of his hat, my hoodie soaked through. 2 days before his wedding, and I had kissed him. I wanted to laugh to cover up the panic, but all I could manage was a strangled cough. He swallowed hard, eyes flicking to the sidewalk, then back to mine. You shouldn't have, he whispered. Not angry, not really, just uncertain. I know, I said, my voice cracking. I didn't mean to. My throat tightened. I didn't finish the sentence. How could I explain that every moment we'd spent together had been building to this impossible line we had just crossed? Mark shook his head, a tiny, ironic smile tugging at his lips. 2 days, he said softly. 2 days, and I'm supposed to be the happiest man alive. I wanted to say that happiness didn't exist without me in it, that maybe he'd always known it, and that maybe he'd always felt the same. But I couldn't, because that would ruin everything. And yet, staying silent felt like betrayal. We ended up walking. The rain soaked our clothes, but no one cared. Not the cars that passed, not the occasional neighbor looking out their window. It was just us, moving slowly through the quiet town, our hands brushing every few steps, sending sparks up my arm that I could not ignore. The irony of it was brutal. We had spent years teasing each other, calling each other hopeless romantics, mocking every cheesy love story we stumbled across. And now here we were, caught in a story we didn't want to live but couldn't escape. I glanced at him. Mark's jaw was tight, eyes cast forward, but I could see the storm behind them. My chest tightened. I wanted to reach out, hold him, beg him not to do this wedding, or maybe beg him to kiss me again. You're going to tell her? I asked, the words slipping out before I could stop them. He laughed, a hollow, uncomfortable sound. No, and neither are you. We pretend this never happened, right? I wanted to argue. I wanted to say that pretending wasn't enough, that 2 days wasn't enough, and that our hearts didn't follow calendars or vows. But I didn't. I nodded because that was the only thing that kept him from running from me, the only thing that let us keep walking side by side without falling apart entirely. Later, we ended up at the pier, overlooking the cold, gray waters of the bay. The wind whipped at our faces, carrying the tang of salt and the faint smell of fish from the boats docked nearby. The town seemed so small from here, so irrelevant. And yet, it was where all of this had happened, where every memory of late-night talks, drunken confessions, and quiet laughter had taken root. He turned to me, water glinting in his eyes, and for a moment, the world fell silent. The chaos of impending vows, obligations, and the lives we thought we wanted didn't matter. It was just him and me, and a kiss that shouldn't have happened, and maybe it meant something. I don't know what to do, he admitted, voice raw. I love her, but I don't know if I can ignore this. Ignore us. I swallowed hard, gripping the edge of the pier so I wouldn't reach for him. I don't know if I can either. It was ironic, tragic, and yet incredibly intimate. 2 best friends, standing at the edge of the life we'd planned, staring into the unknown, hearts pounding in unison. I realized then that nothing about this was simple, nothing about Mark or me had ever been simple. And maybe that was why it hurt so much and why it felt so right. For hours we just stood there, talking about everything and nothing, letting the storm of feelings crash over us in silence. Our shoulders brushed more than once, our laughter broke through the tension, and sometimes, just sometimes, our hands lingered closer than they should. And in that long, aching night, I realized something terrifying. We were no longer just best friends. We were something else entirely. Something complicated. Something forbidden. Something beautiful. The next morning, the sunlight spilled through the blinds of Mark's apartment, painting stripes across the floor. I didn't sleep. My mind was a carousel of memories, what-ifs, and the ghost of that kiss that refused to let me go. Mark was in the kitchen, making coffee, humming a tune I didn't recognize. Normalcy or something like it attempted to creep in, but neither of us could fully step back into the ordinary. "You awake?" he asked, glancing over his shoulder with that familiar half-smile that made my chest ache. "Yeah," I muttered, shifting uncomfortably on the couch. The room smelled of coffee and toast, so domestic, so painfully ordinary. And yet, everything between us was anything but. Mark set down 2 mugs and sat across from me. We stared at each other over the rims, neither of us speaking, both knowing that words could either ruin or heal. Finally, he sighed. "I can't get it out of my head," he admitted. "Not the kiss. Not you." I felt the weight of my own heart press against my ribs. "Me neither." We laughed quietly, the sound fragile, almost absurd. The tension that had gripped us for the past 2 days was still there, but it was softer now, like the edges of a storm fading into the horizon. "Then what do we do?" I asked, my voice trembling slightly. I can't undo it. And I don't want to pretend it didn't happen." He ran a hand through his hair, gaze dropping. "I don't want to hurt anyone, especially not her." His tone was heavy with guilt, and yet, beneath it, there was honesty, raw and unfiltered. I nodded, understanding but not satisfied. "And what about us?" Mark's eyes searched mine, lingering, as if looking for permission, for courage, for a sign that this chaotic, forbidden thing we shared was real. "I don't know, but I do know that I don't want to lose you. Not like this. Not ever." The honesty in his words wrapped around me like a warm blanket. All the confusion, all the fear, melted away, leaving a quiet certainty. I wanted the same thing. And maybe, just maybe, we could figure out a way to navigate the mess we'd created without destroying ourselves or anyone else in the process. 2 days passed like a blur. Mark went to meet his fiancée, and I stayed out of the way, pretending to busy myself with work and errands. Every text from him was coded, careful, a delicate dance of affection and restraint. Every shared glance when we ran into each other in town was electric, full of unspoken promises and unacknowledged desire. Then came the night before the wedding. We found ourselves back on the pier, the water calm this time, reflecting the stars like scattered diamonds. The world felt infinite and intimate all at once. "I can't do this," Mark whispered, voice barely carrying over the gentle lapping of the waves. "I can't walk into that ceremony tomorrow and pretend everything is fine." I stepped closer, my hand brushing his. "Then don't pretend. Don't lie. You've spent your life pretending to be someone you're not, and I'm not going to let you do that anymore. Not for her. Not for anyone." He closed his eyes, leaning slightly into my touch, the air between us thick with anticipation, relief, and fear. "You think we can be happy?" "I know we can," I said, heart hammering. "It won't be easy, but it'll be real. And that's worth everything." And then, for the first time in 2 days, we kissed again. Not impulsively, not recklessly. This time it was deliberate, slow, tender. The world around us vanished. The streetlights, the pier, the quiet town, they all melted away until it was just him and me, together, fully and irrevocably. The next morning, Mark made a choice that surprised everyone but neither of us. He called off the wedding. No drama, no public spectacle, just an honest conversation and a quiet acknowledgement that he had to follow his heart. The relief in his eyes when he told me was overwhelming, a mixture of fear and exhilaration that mirrored my own. We spent the following weeks slowly, carefully, figuring out what us meant. Our friendship had been the foundation, and now love became the walls and roof, fragile at first, but growing stronger with each shared smile, each lingering touch, each quiet evening spent simply being together. And yes, there were awkward moments. There were old friends who didn't understand. There were remnants of doubt and guilt that crept in like shadows. But each time, we faced them together, laughing, arguing, and holding on tighter. One Saturday evening, we found ourselves on the same pier where everything had started. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. I reached for his hand, and he squeezed it gently, a silent acknowledgement of everything we had survived. "Do you remember that night?" I asked, a small, teasing smile on my lips. "How could I forget?" he replied, eyes glinting with humor and something deeper, something softer. "I'm glad I kissed you," I said, voice low, almost reverent. "Me too," he whispered, leaning his forehead against mine. "Me too." And in that moment, with the sky burning above us and the water calm beneath, everything made sense. All the confusion, the chaos, the stolen kisses, they had led us here. To honesty, to love, to a new kind of happiness that neither of us had dared to imagine before. We walked back to town hand in hand, the world around us vast and open. Nothing was perfect. Nothing would ever be entirely simple. But for the first time, the future didn't feel scary. It felt ours. And that was enough. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe to stay updated with the latest videos.